Hi, I'm Andy Phillips, and we're here at Oak Hill Iron Works, home of the Big Blue Power Hammer manufacturer. Today I'm going to talk some about the dual valve system and how to set that up, how to use it, and what's new on our hammers. So we've got our Shop 155 here, and our 155 has been set up with the dual valve system, but before we get into the second valve, I'm going to run it first just with the single valve on it. Just because you've installed the dual valve system, you don't have to use it. If for simplicity's sake you want to just work with one valve for a little while, that's okay. And I'm going to do some cold texturing, and a lot of times with cold texturing, you want to be able to adjust your stroke, and you can still adjust the stroke completely. So we're gonna start there. I've got some hot rolled steel here, and what I'm going to do is, we call it dog boning the edges. I'm just going to go down and texture the high edges, and I'll start out by setting the stroke on my hammer. You can start out nice and high like this, but since I'm not using very much power out of the hammer, I'm not pushing the foot pedal down very far, I can take the stroke and drop it down about an inch here, and you'll hear that hammer speed up a little bit and go even a little bit lower. And if you've got a lot of cold texturing to do, or you're doing production work, that really saves a lot of air because the cylinder is not moving very much, and you're using the minimal amount of stroke that you need. So setting your stroke is sort of the first important thing, and even in some forging operations you have to be able to switch back and forth. First you need to be forging something really tall, and then you drop it down so you can forge something shorter, and when you're doing hot work, that can be important, being able to quickly adjust. But the hammer, even with the dual valve system, it's more efficient, it picks up some power, but you don't have to use that second valve. So now that I've got this little bit done, we'll go over to our Shop 110, and I've got a combination of dies on there. We've got our super small crown and a flat die on the bottom. Now, one of the cool advantages of the dual valve system is you can keep all of the power of a hit, but you don't have to have as many beats per minute. It doesn't have to hit as frequently, and that can give you an advantage if you're working tooling or if you're cold texturing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down the center of this bar, and I'm going to cold texture. I've got the primary valve on the right hand side set all the way to the top, and the secondary valve set as far down as I can run it. And we'll talk about setting that too low here in a second, but it's at a good spot right now. So I've got both of those valves locked in. You see, I can still vary how hard I'm hitting, but I have more time to pick the spot. Where I'm going to hit it. And if I really want to lay into it, I can still hit it really hard, but not nearly as fast as I would if the valves weren't spread out. Alright, so that's set all the way out there. Now we're going to do a little bit of forging. We'll go back over to the 155. I'll set the primary valve back to our normal spot. We've got a mark on the side of the hammer here, and there's a spot kind of right in the middle. For us, it's about 7 inches to the top of the valve here, and from the cage here to the ball on the valve. And it depends on what type of work you're doing, but for the most part, if you set it there, you'll be able to walk up to the hammer and forge anything underneath it. So I've got it set right there, and I'll come around to the secondary valve. I'm going to put that back on. And for normal operation, you want to set the secondary valve, the top of the white body of the valve, at about the bottom of the primary valve. So you see they're kind of split across there. You don't lose any speed in between, just that little bit of adjustment. As you start to drop it further and further down, you're lengthening the total stroke, or the power stroke in between, and that slows the hammer down a little bit. But you also pick up power and efficiency that way. So you can change the time or the beats per minute by spreading these two apart. But for the most part, we'll set them up like this, and you just leave it set that way in the shop, and you've got lots of adjustment. Like I said, you don't have to have the secondary valve on here. So if, say, you needed to drop this down, it's okay to just drop the primary valve on down below the secondary valve. It doesn't hurt anything. The secondary valve only functions with the hammer if it's below the primary valve and being activated that way. So all that said, I'll get a hot piece of steel out here, and I'm going to go through and do a little bit of forging.
What are you forging? 1 inch?
This is 1 inch square. Okay, so now I've got a little bit of an element started, and say I wanted to be able to put a screw in there. I'm going to use a set tool and put a dimple in there. Well, to give myself the utmost advantage of being able to set that tool, I'm going to spread the valves out a little bit. Now you see the head will cycle in between the valves. I've got my set tool here, and I pick my location for it, and I can set it softly in a single blow. So I see if that's where I want it, I leave it there. I might need to adjust it a little bit. I'm going to hit it again and again, and each time, that way I can check what I'm doing with the hammer. And being able to do that with a chisel or with a flat or any type of a set hammer can give you a big advantage. And basically what I'm doing is just pressing down on the pedal, but there's a wide margin of error that you can use to get a single stroke out of the hammer. Now this leads us to one problem that happens sometimes. If you're working really tall tooling, you can fit a pretty big tool under the 155, but if you're working tall tooling, or if you get this just a little bit too low, the secondary valve, you can end up locking up on the piece that you've got. So I'm going to put this under here and say I've gone too much, and now it's almost like I've got the tool locked in there. And you press down on the pedal, it won't do anything. What you have to do is come over here to the secondary valve and just loosen it and slide it up. It'll release the head, and you can release your tool and then get that back in the forge and reset your tooling, and you're ready to go. So that's the one precaution you want to take, is to make sure that you don't set that secondary valve too far down, because then the head will never release and start to rise back up. But that's our new dual valve system, and it's very versatile. We've been using it here in the shop for a while now, and we've used it in all these different ways that I've shown you here. So I hope your dual valve system turns out to be as versatile in your shop production. So thank you. I'm Andy Phillips, and thank you for joining us.